Hello, hello mga kameta! Kamusta kayo dyan? Kamusta kayo dyan? Happy Independence Day! Happy Independence Day! And don't worry mga kameta, we're gonna have a substantive, serious, real talk dito sa issue ng independence ng Pilipinas dahil nga doon sa mga panganib, doon sa mga threats at concerns no, na hinaharap ng ating bayan no, over the past few years alone no, pagdating sa West Philippine Sea issue. And because, of course, we're also talking about the departure from the years of Tatay when he was extremely, I love China, literally, China will protect me, just as all the bullying was happening dyan sa West Philippine Sea. So pag-usapan natin na mabuti yan because alam ko marami dyan sa atin, pwede nilang sabihin na medyo cynical sila, sasabihin nila na ano tong Independence Day, anong independence, anong freedom, ganun ganun. Gets ko na yan, gets ko na yan. Believe me, I'm the last person who will easily fall for slogans or yung mga, alam niyo na, mga symbolic ek-ek. But let me try to put things into context because we have been facing mga kameta a generational challenge no in the form of the West Philippine Sea disputes. At mukhang lalala ito in light of the fact na meron din tayong mga threats to the north sa Luzon Strait and of course increasing also dyan sa Philippine Sea at saka Benham Rice area. So maraming bagay mga kameta na kailangan natin tignan at dapat ma-appreciate din natin yung mga gains na meron tayo over the years in terms of resisting any forms of shenanigans no and also making sure na protektahan talaga natin ang West Philippine Sea. So let me just put things into context, mga kameta. Actually, a while ago, I was thinking of wearing something more happy, something more jolly on our Independence Day. But let me also express my deepest condolences to the family of former General and former Senator Biazon, including, of course, his son, Congressman Biazon, who I've been following on Twitter and to whom I express my deepest condolences. General Biazon, Senator Biazon was really, really something special. Over the years, I had the privilege no, of meeting many people who serve in the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Kasama dyan, of course, yung former chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and former Defense Secretary and former President Fidel V. Ramos. I got to know pala former Senator Biazon was also has roots in Ilocos Norte. I think he was born in Ilocos Norte although Caviteño yung kanyang ama at lumaki ata siya sa Pasay City. So let me express my deepest condolences to the family of former Senator and General Biazon. And as a tribute to the former general, all of these mga kameta, related yan dito sa pag-usapan natin today. And there's a reason why I actually also put the Lenny picture there because it's trending right now in light of the fact na may ulan and people are reminding us of the fact that Lenny, was all the way, talaga nanindigan. Literally, but also figuratively, no? Not only in terms of the rain conditions, but also in light of the shenanigans that were happening sa ating West Philippine Sea policy under Tatay noong 2017 and 2018. All right? Balikan natin yan very quickly. No, actually not very quickly. Let's be fair. We have to give due recognition to the great leaders that we have had. Some were better appreciated than others. Some were appreciated more early on than later on. But I think it's very important to remind us of the great contribution of Pong Biazon, no, yung kanyang nickname. And I want to draw your attention to this really moving, to put it mildly, tribute by a very good writer and someone who knows the military very well. I think she's the best informed journalist in the Philippines as far as the Armed Forces of the Philippines is concerned. So I'm talking about Glenda Gloria, one of the editors and co-founders of Rappler, one of the other great, strong women there in Rappler in the Philippine mainstream media landscape. I really suggest you guys check this out because it really talks about gaano ka-unique ito si Pong Biazon. No, not only in terms of his height. No, I mean, this 6-footer guy, suave and all. I actually had the opportunity of watching him during some of the interventions he had in the Philippine House of Representatives when I was an advisor there and was attending the Foreign Affairs Committee and Overseas Filipino Workers Affairs Committee. This is more than 10 years ago, no? Medyo fresh graduate pa tayo nun. So I did some work in the government back in the day, and I had the pleasure and privilege of watching a number of luminaries back then making interventions. Naalala ko pa, si Pacquiao pa, medyo bagong congressman pa nung back in the day. But Senator Biazon, who was also a congressman at some point, he was really something special. And to be honest, I don't think I appreciated how special he was until I read more about his background in light of his tragic passing over the past 24 hours or so. I think I have to pin down the exact time, but kasi kahapon we send our prayers and love to his son and Congressman Biazon, and then kanina nakuha namin itong news na yan. Now, si former general and Biazon, of course, really proved the mettle of his leadership, and how special he was, and his patriotism and conviction and loyalty to the Philippine Constitution sa ating saligang batas at the height of the coups against Corazon Aquino. Just to rewind a bit, yung backstory niya, yung origin story niya is actually extremely inspiring. General Biazon actually lost his father very early on. So, katulad ng maraming Pilipino nung panahon ng golden era ni Diktador, they had to really struggle on a daily basis just to survive, At former Senator Biazon, actually, from very early on, he was really helping his family to just get by on a daily basis. And that meant doing all sorts of works, mga kameta, all sorts of works back in the day, including, helping with, sewage system, doing really difficult jobs, no? And then, of course, in difficult circumstances ng kanyang youth, kind of prevented him from blooming early on. So, kind of late bloomer siya. So, if I'm not mistaken, nakapasok lang siya ng PMA after, he tried very hard, but he was not able to get there initially. But eventually, he made it. And then by the time he graduated, he was, quite older than other people, other PMA graduates. And he was, I think, like in the 40th or 30th percentile of the graduates. So he had to really overcome a lot to make it through PMA, to graduate through PMA. I think may na-repeat pa siyang subject, etc. But once he was out, and his rise to the ranks coincided also with the fall of the Marcos dictatorship. But I think the most trying moment for him, the decisive moment that really proved his leadership, was during yung mga coups against Corazon Aquino. And this is very important, mga kameta, because I want to always make it clear that when we critique, not criticize, but critique former president leaders for yung mga kakulangan nila, yung mga hindi nila nagawa, we always try to put it in context. And if you remember, we had a number of guests dito, including dun sa podcast natin, who talked about the fact na, yes, you can fault Corazon Aquino for not pushing for certain decisive reforms. You can fault Corazon Aquino for not pushing for cancellation of her debt, odious debt. You can fault that administration for not pushing for revolutionary reforms. But one thing that we should not forget, I think I raised it with Attorney Carranza, with Cecilia, I think even with si Teddy Casino dun sa interview podcast natin, na-raise natin yan. One of the things that we tend to forget is that Corazon Aquino did not control the armed forces of the Philippines, and that the armed forces of the Philippines was completely watak-watak. In fact, Biazon was able to make his mark in history during a very decisive moment when really, the coup plotters, Senator Hunasan maybe can tell us more about this, the coup plotters came very close to toppling the post-Marcos, post-Echa regime. And if not for the help of Americans, and if not for the bravery and courage and conviction of people like Pong Biazon, former Senator Biazon, Rodolfo Biazon, who back then was a colonel, then, it's very likely that the Philippines would have gone in a very wild direction of potentially military dictatorship or who knows what. No? So his role was very decisive. He essentially helped save the Corazon regime. You may know that the late President Aquino actually had a bullet stuck in his neck because of one of these coup attempts that almost killed him. So let me quickly talk about. I mean, please go ahead and read it. But you're talking about. So we're talking about December 1989. I don't know kung this was panglima or pangpito or whatever. But there were at least 7 or 8 coups depending on how you're gonna count it. But this was really the deadly one, potentially deadly one. The rebels actually had planes. No, they were dropping bombs. No, on important installations. And Biazon was actually in charge of protecting Camp Aguinaldo na pinakamahalaga, no, dun sa lahat ng camps. Now, what was quite difficult for General Biazon, back then Colonel Biazon, was that some of his own troops actually defected to the RAM people, armed forces of his movement, whatever. So he had to really bring in troops from different sides, really remain stoic at height of crisis. And this was also when he actually really sought the help of the media. So many media folks, journalists, and here this is where Glenn de Gloria comes in. Brave journalists like Glenn de Gloria come in. They accompanied him during those very difficult nights, not one night, but several ones, when the post-EDSA regime, the post-Marcos regime, had to really fight tooth and nail to survive, no? And after their successful pushback against the coup plotters and essentially saving the democratic project, imperfect, very problematic, but still saving the democratic project, Biazon became a kind of a household name. No, he became the household name. And soon after, he became the AFP chief of staff. I think the first from the Navy back then. Then also, I think among the first PMA graduates, if not the first, to make it to the Senate. And the rest is history. No. Now, one thing that makes him really, really commendable, aside from his loyalty dun sa saligang batas ng Pilipinas, sa demokrasya natin, is also his respect for the democratic process, his respect for civilians, particularly the media. As Glenna Gloria puts it beautifully in her immensely moving tribute, Biazon the soldier found the time to tell a story, to explain to us, to listen, to challenge, which cannot be said of a number of today's generation of military propagandists who don't only spread hate but bigotry. No to Biazon's old dying breed. Rest in peace, sir. Salute. Saludo din kami sa inyo. And our deepest condolences to the family of General Biazon. I really suggest you guys to read more about his background because we really need, mga kameta, more leaders like him. People in positions of power who stood by their convictions, who did not, fall into this kind of trollish Oktoberfest nonsense, propaganda and all. Alam niyo na sino mga yan, mga red tagging, shenanigans, and buffoons and all of that. Yeah, he had none of that. None of that. He showed respect for the democratic process. He showed respect for journalism, for freedom of expression, and he risked his life. He risked his life, not one night, but several nights straight, just during one coup alone, to save the Philippine Democratic Republic. Now, ibang usapan na, whether we have honored the legacy of these people enough throughout the years. Obviously, marami tayong kakulangan. Marami tayong kailangan iusin. But this is where, mga kameta, this is also where I want to emphasize something. I think a lot of people are not appreciating how troubling the situation was under the former administration. Now, this is not to romanticize what's happening under Marcos Jr., right? But you know my stance on Marcos Jr. It's a case-to-case basis. I think on the foreign policy, we're moving in the right direction. On some of the other issues, it's so-so. Others, not so much, right? So, my stance is very much case-to-case basis. Not hater, not fanboy. With the previous administration, this was really the place where it became very troubling. Now, just to be absolutely clear, mga kameta, I completely agree with the fact na hindi dapat tayo dependent sa Amerika. I have argued time and again, before Tatay Digong even became a national political force, that maraming kakulangan ng Amerika sa atin. Hindi tayo tinulungan nung Panatag Shoal, Scarborough Shoal situation, Panatag Shoal situation, but even earlier during the situation dyan sa Panganiban Reef. If I remember attending a talk in Harvard, and Joseph Nye, Professor Nye of Harvard, was one of the was one of the speakers, and he was sharing his story about when he was serving the U.S. government back then and advising against U.S. getting involved. So I know very well that U.S. was a completely unreliable partner during two major crises in the post-Cold War period. At the same time, the argument was not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. The bathwater was the equivocation. The bathwater was, let's just call it the Kissinger-Nixon doctrine of strategic ambivalence, which clearly was not strategic, it was more ambivalent, and just help and encourage China to push the envelope. Now, as I argued, kung nagbasa ka, including my works, you would know that since 2018-19, iba na yung position ng Amerika at mas decisively behind Philippines sila. Both during Trump and Biden administration, they made it very clear. Pag inatake yung ating mga troops, yung ating mga barko, yung ating mga eroplano, mag-apply ang Mutual Defense Treaty sa West Philippine Sea. So, iba na pong usapan. But, we had problems dun sa ating alyansa up until the end of the Aquino era. As a good friend of mine, Greg Pauling, mentioned in an interview I had with him, President Aquino was not given enough love by the United States. He was not given sufficient respect, right? And they did not help the Philippines enough, even if the Philippines was a big supporter of the US pivot to Asia. I stand by that conviction. And pwede nyo tanungin yung mga opisyales sa Amerika. Aminado sila. Yung iba kasi nagtatrabaho pa rin sa ngayon. Kasi Biden and a lot of his people were also working during Obama era. And parang in a way, guilty sila sa Pilipinas. Kaya that explains why na super chummy sila kay Bongbong Marcos. Because this is less about Bongbong Marcos. This is about making it up to the Philippines. Dahil talagang nagkakulang Amerika. Having said that, ang nangyari kasi kay tatay was, tama naman yung sinasabi niya na may problema dun sa alyansa natin. Pero, yung itapon mo yan, tapos pupunta ka, tataya ka dun sa kabila, na mas immediate na binubuli ka ngayon, laking problema yan. At katulad ng sinabi natin, napaka-hipokrito naman yung ganyang position na kung saan, ipo-point out mo yung ginawa ng mali ng Amerika 100 years ago, or 1901, di ba, yung Balanggiga massacre, for instance. And then, wala kang sinasabi masyado dun sa mga bullying nangyari recently. Or, okay, let's push the envelope. Tingnan mo gaano ka-chummy si Tatay Digong sa mga Hapon. Okay? Aminado kong mga Hapon ay mabuting kaibigan since the end of Second World War. Pero alam natin, not 100 years ago, not 8 years ago, but in the 1940s, 78 years ago, maraming ginawang mga mali ang mga Hapon sa atin. Never na-mention ni Tatay Digong yan. So kung talagang it was for accountability, bakit hindi na minention yung ginawa ng mga Hapon na mas recent pa? Or bakit hindi siya nag-stand up sa China dun sa Reed Bank incident? If anything, ang ginawa pa niya, na-echo pa niya yung propaganda ng kabila. Diba? Yung parang din-downplay pa niya yung situation. Now, so, as someone who was very fair, at first I said, okay, I appreciate the effort of President Duterte. This is 2016, I don't know, June, July, August, whatever, na maging less dependent tayo sa Amerika. Agree ako dyan. Pero biglang naging weird na. Weird na yung situation, diba? Nakita natin na after especially arbitration award na lumabas, biglang ibang usapan na to. Ayan na yung mga trolls natin. Mamaya balikan kita. And that's where suddenly things went weird, right? Kaya nung 2019, at the height of the Reed Bank incident, kung saan wala akong nakitang leadership. In fairness to Secretary Lorenzana, siya yung nag-booking dun sa bullying na nangyari sa atin, na isang Chinese suspected militia vessel ay behind yung Gemver, no? Muntik na matay yung mga mangingista natin, ilan sa kanila, more than a dozen, no? They almost drowned. That was when I used my column. I deployed my column sa Philippine Daily Inquirer to make a protest column. I don't need a publicity stunt, mga kameda, kasi there are charlatans, haters, and fools out there. So, this is a publicity. Like, I didn't need publicity stunt. By this time, I already had hundreds of thousands of followers online, right? I was a resident analyst in the biggest media network in the country, right? Like, I can go on and on. I didn't need that. And this was very risky for me. This was very, very risky. And in fact, not long after this, kung ano ng mga kalokohan na nangyari, ginamit pa yung isang picture natin na with Picasso na sasabihin reckless driving. Kinontrol ko sarili ko. Pero pumunta ako dun sa government office niyan, kinausap ko, sabi ko, saan yung assistant secretary? Kausapin natin. Who is behind this nonsense, no? Trying to make it show na reckless driving ginawa natin. Obviously, naka-steady yung car. Buti nga nag-sorry yung mga yan. But I know sino yung behind that nonsense harassment, legal harassment na ginawa sa akin doon. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. You think I'll just forget? No, I'll never forget that. So I remember that very well. Anyway, I got a lot of trolling, horrible harassment after publishing that. And you know what makes it even worse? Yung mga dilawan doon, na kabila, na they felt siguro outshine sila or something, they were also hating on me for this. Parang, hindi ko yung first na gumawa, si ganito, ganito. Well, actually, last time I checked, I think, I occupied the same space as Conrad de Quiros, and Conrad de Quiros also, I think, used this column twice to make protest columns. So it was actually in continuation of that tradition. This was not about being the first to do it. This is about doing it at the right time for the right cause. And I'm sorry, foreign policy is my thing. Nakailang libro na po tayo, international published libro tayo sa West Philippine Sea issues pa lang. Alright? The Indo-Pacific book, Asia's New Battlefield book, may isa pang book tayo ngayon in review by one of the top publishers in the world, university publishers in the world. So, you know what I'm saying? Doon ko rin nakita na marami mga walang iya dyan. Diba? Na, you know, yung mga opposition pa, but actually they want to have monopoly on being the opposition. So once someone independent-minded like me came in and make a statement, you suddenly you wanna downplay it and say it's like a publicity stunt. Get out of here. Get out of here. And that's why I'm saying, whether ito yung mga tarantadong kalbo type, yung mga gano'n na nagmamagaling ngayon, napapakute, like, excuse me, where were you guys when we were taking all the punches and all of that nung nagre-resist kami sa West Philippine Sea? Kami, sila Justice Carpio, J. Batumbakal, marami kami. And behind the scenes, you guys have no idea the things we did to uphold the interests of the Philippine Republic. You have no idea what the things we did all those years to make sure na walang mag-bend over dyan sa loob. No, wala kaming magawa dong kay tatay kung anong gusto niyang drama dyan. Pero at the end of the day, it mattered what the DFA will do. It mattered what the DND would do. It mattered what, you know what I'm saying? And gladly, I had communication channels right and left. And I was not alone. There were many good friends, you know? And of course, Justice Carpio also among the more prominent ones. We all fought very, very hard, mga kameta, to make sure na hindi ma-compromise yung ating interes sa West Philippine Sea. Kaya nga, walang nangyari dun sa mga joint development ECEC na yan. Kaya nga, sa dulo na rin, hindi rin nawala yung alyansa ng Pilipinas sa kanyang pinaka malaking, security military partner. Kaya nga, again, all of these things we did behind the scenes and on the record, all the hate, all the harassment we got, mga kamet. I'll never forget those things. You think I'll just forget them? No, I remember those things very well. So yung mga nagbamaganda ngayon ng pabok dyan, you guys are amateurs. You don't know what you're talking about. We were dealing with high-stake geopolitics year after year. Very difficult years. Alright? So yung mga pawok dyan, get out of here. Alright? You're just a bunch of amateurs. Alright? Show some respect. Alright? Paepal-epal pa yung mga iba dyan. So, we stood our ground. And the lesson I learned, noon, mga kameta, was this. If you stand your ground and maintain your conviction, maintain your sovereign mind, meaning independent thinking, hindi lang partisan, right? And you stand stoic and strong, under all sorts of trolling attacks, you will be vindicated by history. And I feel very vindicated with what's happening right now. Kitang-kita natin, the Filipino people are supporting a tougher stance at West Philippine Sea disputes. So this is not about Marcos. Marcos is just following what the Filipino people want. And we were there fighting for what the Filipino people wanted. Now, to be absolutely clear, as I said, as much as also I didn't want us to be dependent on US, kaya nga yung stance ko sa EDCA is, let's debate about this. Hindi rin ako against, having economic relationship or diplomatic relationship with China. In fact, China has done very good things in the Middle East infrastructure build-up, mediating between rival powers, etc. I just hope they'll be as good and constructive in their own supposed backyard. So I'm for that. But it should not come at the expense of our core interests and sovereign rights. All right? So, yun eh. And in fact, throughout the years, we fought against racism, prejudice against our Chinoy brothers and sisters. Right? A lot of our heroes, like Rizal, were in a way Chinoys. No, so I also fought against that. I called out, including a fellow columnist, a former professor, right? When may pagka konting prejudice dun sa mga, just to put it mildly, dun sa sinabi niya sa, you get what I'm saying? So we fought against prejudice. We fought against kowtowing. We fought against shenanigans. We took all the hit and punches and all of that. And we feel vindicated. And if you're not a hater, if you're not just partisan, but actually care about your national interest, no, you will be also able to do proper objective analysis and sometimes even accurate forecast. So tignan yung interview ko with Christian Amanpour last year before the elections about my expectations of where the Philippines will go in terms of its foreign policy with US and China. We got it right. We got it right because I knew that the Filipino people will eventually prevail. The sentiment of the Philippine people will eventually prevail, which is depends saan yung interest ng ating bayan. All right? Now, this is also where I have some sort of disagreement with some of our more progressive friends, although I consider myself more progressive than these people if we're really talking about real progressiveness. But anyway, this idea of neither to west nor to east. Yes, I'm with that. But let's not forget, hindi po ang mga West ang nagtatreten na mag-invade sa Taiwan at hindi rin po silang nagbubuli sa atin sa West Philippine Sea. So let's keep that in mind, no? And dun sa may mga charlatans who are trying to say na, pro-US lang, yan. Well, let's not forget, at least one good thing we're realizing is that no less than Ambassador Romualdez, dun sa isang mga interview natin, or two actually, said it. We should not rely on any country in particular, including the US. And kaya nga nagde-develop tayo ng relasyon sa Japan, relasyon sa Europa, sa Australia, at India. Gusto ko sana, ba't yung mga ibang countries dyan? More with South Korea. Even Turkey, posible na kausapin natin. There are a number of Middle Eastern powers that could help us with building our defensive capabilities. Go lang tayo. Go lang tayo. That's how you defend our interest. Now, the last part of itong presentation natin today, mga kameta. You see, you know what I'm saying? Like, I laugh, I make jokes, pa-hip-hop pa tayo. Actually, hindi pop football yung suit natin. Here and there, but we're very serious people, mga kameta. This is no joke, right? This is no joke. So, dun sa mga charlatans who think that they can, it's like, good luck. You don't know what you're dealing with. Okay. Now, this is also the context within which I said, in fairness naman to Lenny, nakita natin in 2017, 2018, nandigan siya. No, and literally that picture of her standing under the rain and nagbigay,